1. Opening. When progress becomes a weakness. Imagine this for just a moment. A stone farmhouse in the Bavarian mountains, built in the year 1287, more than 7 centuries old. No electricity, no natural gas, no central heating, no modern insulation. Winters there routinely fall below -40 degrees Fahrenheit. And yet, the family living in that house today pays the equivalent of roughly €30 a month to stay warm. Now hold that image and compare it to this. A modern home in Minnesota, built less than a decade ago, fully wired, fully insulated, filled with advanced technology. One winter storm cuts the power for just 18 hours. Pipes freeze solid, walls crack, tens of thousands of dollars in damage follow. The house is newer, more expensive, more advanced, and it fails almost immediately. This is not bad luck, and it is not coincidence, it is forgotten knowledge. If medieval people were ignorant, then how did their buildings survive winters that our modern systems struggle to endure? If their technology was primitive, why does it continue to outperform ours the moment energy disappears? This video is not about nostalgia. It does not glorify hardship, poverty, or suffering. Medieval people did not survive because they were tougher or stronger than we are today. They survived because they understood heat, how to generate it efficiently, how to trap it, how to store it, and above all, how not to waste it. What you are about to hear is not folklore. These systems have been measured, tested, and compared using modern engineering standards, and the results are uncomfortable. Today on Historia Prime, we explore 8 medieval heating inventions so advanced, we still struggle to beat them. Not because we lack technology, but because we abandoned a way of thinking that once made survival possible. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you may never look at your home, your heater, or even winter itself the same way again. Second, the forgotten foundation, thermal intelligence. To understand medieval heating, we must first understand something far more important than furnaces or fireplaces. We must understand mindset. Medieval societies lived in a world where heat was a scarce resource. Firewood had to be cut by hand, split, dried for months, carried long distances, and carefully rationed. Every flame represented hours of human labor. Every spark carried danger. Heat was expensive, not in money, but in effort, time, and risk. Modern societies operate under a completely different assumption. Energy is abundant. Turn a dial. Flip a switch. Heat appears instantly, then disappears just as easily, only to be generated again moments later. Our systems are built on constant input, constant consumption, and constant loss. From these two worlds emerged two radically different philosophies. In the medieval world, fire was lit once and expected to last for days. Heat was captured, stored, and released slowly over time. Retaining warmth was the highest priority because creating it again was costly. In the modern world, heat is generated continuously. Retention is secondary. Loss is tolerated because energy is assumed to be endless. Out of necessity, medieval builders developed what we can call thermal intelligence, a practical, experience-driven understanding of heat rooted in 3 core principles. The first was thermal mass. Dense materials like stone and clay can absorb enormous amounts of heat and release it gradually over long periods. The second was trapped air. Air itself is one of the best insulators known to nature, but only when it is held completely still. And the third was controlled convection. Heat must move, but only where you want it to move, and only when you allow it to. Medieval heating was not primitive. It was disciplined. It was engineered for scarcity, and scarcity more than abundance teaches precision. Third, Invention 1, the heat storage hypocaust, a thermal battery beneath the floor. Most people have heard of Roman hypocausts, early underfloor heating systems that pushed hot air beneath raised floors. They were impressive for their time, but deeply inefficient. The fire had to be fed constantly. When the flames died, the heat vanished with them. Medieval engineers faced a harsher reality. In Northern Europe, winters were longer, colder, and far less forgiving. Fuel could not be wasted. Somewhere between the fall of Rome and the High Middle Ages, a quiet but revolutionary improvement emerged. Instead of relying on hot air alone, Medieval builders introduced massive thermal storage into the system. Beneath the floor, they constructed a stone or brick vault furnace. Above it, they stacked enormous granite stones, often 16 to 20 inches in diameter. These stones were not chosen at random. Granite was selected for its exceptional heat capacity. It could absorb vast amounts of thermal energy without cracking, degrading, or losing structural integrity. The process was remarkably simple. A fire was burned hot and fast for 2 to 4 hours. Temperatures inside the chamber exceeded 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the fuel was consumed, the ash was removed, the flue was sealed, and the system was closed. Then physics took over. The superheated granite slowly released its stored energy, warming the air beneath the floor. Carefully placed vents were opened, allowing heat to rise gently into the living space above. Not in short bursts, not in constant cycles, but steadily, quietly, for 3 days, 4 days, sometimes even longer. By the late Middle Ages, these heat storage hypocausts were widespread across monasteries, guild halls, and wealthy homes in northern Germany and the Baltic region. Historical records suggest that by the end of the 15th century, between 800 and 1,000 of these systems were in use. Now compare that to a modern furnace. In deep winter, a typical system may run 6 to 8 hours every day. Over 5 days, that adds up to 30 or 40 hours of active burning. The medieval hypocaust burned for perhaps 3 hours total. Averaged out, that is roughly 36 minutes of fire per day. They were not heating with fire. They were storing heat. They built thermal batteries centuries before we invented the word. And this was only the beginning. Fourth, invention. 2. The masonry stove. Burn for 3 hours, live for 24. At first glance, a masonry stove looks almost disappointing. There are no glowing flames on display, no roaring fire, no constant movement of hot air, just a solid mass of stone, brick, or ceramic tiles sitting quietly in the room. And yet, this silence hides one of the most efficient heating systems ever built. The secret lies inside. Unlike an open fireplace, a masonry stove uses a sealed combustion chamber. Fuel is burned hot and fast behind a small door, allowing temperatures to rise far higher than an open hearth ever could. This is not a fire meant to be admired, it is a fire meant to be controlled. From that chamber, smoke and hot gases do not rush straight upward and disappear. Instead, they are forced through a long, winding maze of internal channels built into the stove's stone body. Each turn slows the gases, each surface extracts heat. By the time the smoke finally exits the chimney, it is no longer hot. That heat has already been taken. This is the critical insight medieval builders understood. Cooling smoke is proof of efficiency. Every degree lost by the exhaust gases is a degree captured and stored in the masonry. Stone and ceramic absorb that energy and release it slowly, radiating warmth into the room for 24 hours or more. One firing per day was enough to keep entire living spaces warm through the coldest nights. In Germany, this system became known as the Kachelofen. In Eastern Europe and Russia, it evolved into the Pechka. Different cultures, different names, but the same principle everywhere. So the obvious question arises, if masonry stoves were so effective, why don't we build them today? The answer has nothing to do with performance. Masonry stoves are heavy, they require strong foundations, they take time to build, they demand skilled labor and careful planning. In a world focused on speed, cost reduction, and rapid construction, they simply do not fit the modern economic model. Modern heating chases speed, medieval heating chased efficiency, and efficiency, once learned, does not need to shout. 5. Invention 3. Double wall systems. When air becomes armor, when modern people think of insulation, they imagine materials, fiberglass bats, foam boards, chemical sprays. Medieval builders thought differently. They understood that insulation is not primarily about material. It is about air, specifically air that cannot move. Across Europe, medieval walls evolved into sophisticated layered systems. One of the most effective was the double wattle and daub wall. 2 woven wooden lattices were built in parallel, creating a cavity between them. This space was then filled, not loosely but tightly packed with dried grass. This detail mattered. Loose fill allows air to circulate. Circulating air carries heat away through convection, but densely packed grass divides the cavity into millions of tiny air pockets, each one too small for air to move freely. Still, air is an extraordinary insulator. Each blade of grass acted like a microscopic wall, breaking up airflow while trapping heat. The result was an insulation system that performed at levels modern engineers would not formally achieve again until the late 20th century. German thermal tests on reconstructed Bronze Age and medieval walls revealed U values comparable to national building standards introduced in 1995. In other words, walls built over 3,000 years ago matched the insulation performance of modern code-compliant construction. Compare this to fiberglass. Fiberglass works on the same principle, trapped air. But it requires industrial production, energy-intensive manufacturing, and chemical binders. The medieval grass cavity required none of that. It used local materials, renewable resources, and human understanding. Fiberglass is manufactured insulation. Grass cavities were engineered insulation. Air is the insulator. Materials only hold it still. Sixth, invention 4. Breathable walls, houses that could breathe. Modern buildings are obsessed with sealing. Plastic vapor barriers, synthetic membranes, perfectly airtight envelopes. Moisture is treated as an enemy to be locked out at all costs, and yet modern homes rot from the inside out. Why? Because moisture does not disappear when you block it. It accumulates. Medieval builders understood something subtle and crucial. Water vapor moves. It migrates through walls, and the goal is not to stop that movement, but to manage it safely. Walls made from clay, straw, and animal dung were not crude. They were breathable. These materials absorbed moisture when humidity was high, then released it gradually when conditions dried. This buffering effect prevented condensation, mold growth, and internal decay. Modern building science now confirms what medieval masons learned through centuries of trial and error. Vapor diffusion must be allowed to occur. Drying cycles matter. A wall that cannot dry will fail, no matter how advanced the materials appear. This is why medieval houses could survive for centuries without internal rot. Their walls acted like living systems, responding to seasonal changes rather than resisting them. They did not fight moisture, they managed it. And in doing so, they built homes that aged gracefully instead of silently destroying themselves. Seventh, invention 5. Systematic sealing, engineering against the cold. Medieval builders understood something modern culture often forgets. Heat loss is not fate, it is mathematics. Cold did not enter medieval homes by force. It leaked in through cracks, gaps, and weak points, and those weaknesses were treated as technical failures, not personal suffering. Every year, as summer faded into autumn, medieval households followed a precise ritual. Walls were inspected from top to bottom. Hairline cracks formed naturally as clay plaster expanded and contracted with seasonal changes. Each crack represented escaping warmth, and escaping warmth meant extra firewood, extra labor, and extra risk. The repair mixture was not guessed. It followed exact proportions. Clay for structure, straw for tensile strength, animal dung for binding fibers and flexibility. Too much clay and the wall would crack again in winter. Too much straw and it would lose integrity. Medieval builders understood this balance long before material science gave it names. Windows received even harsher treatment. Glass was rare and expensive. Many homes used simple openings covered in warmer months. When winter arrived, shutters were sealed shut. Gaps were packed with straw, moss, or cloth. In the coldest regions, some families sealed windows entirely for the season, choosing darkness over heat loss. That decision was not superstition, it was calculation. Modern studies show that a single 1 square meter opening can cost hundreds of kilograms of additional firewood over a winter. Darkness was cheaper than fuel. Medieval people did not accept the cold as destiny. They measured it, they sealed against it, they engineered their survival. They didn't accept cold, they calculated it. 8. Invention 6. The living furnace. Bodies, animals, and heat economics. Medieval heating did not stop at walls and stoves. It included life itself. An average human body produces roughly 100 watts of heat at rest, about the same as a small light bulb. Alone, that heat is barely enough to stay warm in freezing conditions. But medieval people rarely slept alone. Families shared beds. Bodies were packed closely beneath thick woolen coverings. Heat was pooled, not wasted. Studies show that 4 adults sleeping together under shared insulation can maintain comfortable temperatures in rooms that would leave a single sleeper shivering. But humans were only part of the system. In longhouses across northern Europe, livestock lived under the same roof during winter. Cows, sheep, and goats were separated by wooden partitions, not sealed walls. A single cow produces between 1,500 and 2,000 watts of heat, the equivalent of a continuously running space heater. That warmth rose. It traveled through shared walls and roof spaces. Archaeological reconstructions show that this arrangement raised interior temperatures by 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. Often the difference between survival and death. Even sleeping platforms were engineered. Beds were raised several feet off the ground where cold air pooled. Beneath them, straw and dried grass formed thick insulating layers. Straw mattresses trapped air inside hollow stalks, creating insulation comparable to modern fiberglass bats. This was not desperation, it was design. Medieval households integrated biology, architecture, and physics into a single system. This was not poverty. It was thermal economics. 9th. Invention. 7. Textile engineering, clothing as mobile architecture. Long before modern outdoor gear, medieval people understood that survival often depended less on buildings and more on what you wore. Wool was not chosen by tradition alone. It was chosen because it behaves unlike almost any other fiber. When wool gets wet, it continues to insulate. Its crimped structure traps air even when soaked, while chemical bonds within the fibers generate small amounts of heat through moisture absorption. This mattered. In cold climates, cotton kills. Linen chills, wet synthetics fail. Wool protects. Medieval clothing systems were layered deliberately. An inner layer managed moisture, middle layers trapped air, outer layers blocked wind and precipitation. This logic would later reappear in Arctic exploration gear, military cold weather uniforms, and eventually during the Second World War in survival clothing designed for pilots and infantry alike. The science never disappeared. Only the respect for it did. When medieval people stepped outside to fetch water, tend animals, or work in snow, they carried their shelter with them. Their clothing formed a moving microclimate, flexible, breathable, and resilient. The house mattered, but the first line of survival was never the house. Your first shelter was never the house. It was your clothing. 10. Invention. 8. Ash-banked fire. Never let the fire die. In medieval winter, the most dangerous moment was not the coldest night. It was the morning. Starting a fire in freezing conditions was slow, painful, and uncertain. Flint and steel numbed fingers. Damp tinder refused to catch. 15 minutes of failure could mean frostbite, or worse. Medieval households understood this risk clearly, and they engineered around it. Their solution was deceptively simple. They never let the fire die. Before sleeping, when flames had burned down to glowing coals, those coals were carefully raked into a compact mound. Not scattered, not spread thin, a tight pile dense with heat. Then came the crucial step. The mound was covered with 2 to 3 inches of hardwood ash. Hardwood ash has unique properties. Its fine particles trap air, making it an excellent insulator. At the same time, it restricts oxygen flow. This combination creates a perfect balance. The coals are starved of oxygen, preventing flames but insulated enough to retain heat. What follows is slow, controlled smoldering. The coals do not go out. They oxidize at a glacial pace, staying alive at temperatures between 400 and 500 degrees Fahrenheit. 12 hours later, sometimes 18, the fire can be revived by simply brushing aside ash, adding tinder, and gently blowing on the exposed glow. Within seconds, flame returns. Modern bushcraft tests confirm what medieval peasants knew by experience. Properly banked hardwood coals can survive for a full day. Charcoal can last even longer. At Colonial Williamsburg, this technique is still used daily. Their longest recorded banked fire survived for 31 hours. This was not a trick. It was energy management. By preserving the hardest part of fire, ignition, medieval households reduced wood consumption by 40 to 60%. During winter, that difference could mean survival. The fire was never allowed to die because letting it die was waste. And waste, in winter, was fatal. 11th, conclusion. What we call progress. 8 inventions. 1 fire warming a home for days. Walls matching modern insulation standards built thousands of years ago. Stone stoves that store heat instead of wasting it. Buildings that breathe instead of rotting. Sealing rituals that treated heat loss as a technical failure. Bodies and livestock integrated into thermal systems. Clothing engineered to protect life when wet. And fires managed so carefully they never truly went out. None of this required electricity. None of it depended on supply chains. None of it produced monthly bills. So we must confront the final question. If medieval heating systems were so effective, why did we abandon them? The answer is uncomfortable. They were not abandoned because they failed. They were abandoned because they did not fit an economy built on speed, convenience, and constant consumption. These systems demanded time. They demanded labor. They demanded understanding. They did not scale easily. They did not generate recurring profit. And they did not reward shortcuts. Modern technology did not replace medieval heating because it was better. It replaced it because it was faster, cheaper to install, and more profitable to maintain. We gained convenience. But we lost resilience. A modern home without power in extreme cold has hours before disaster. Pipes freeze, walls crack, systems collapse. A medieval home built with thermal intelligence remained livable for days, sometimes weeks. The lesson is not to abandon modern technology. The lesson is to remember what our ancestors already knew. That warmth is precious. That heat must be respected. And that survival is not about having more energy, but about wasting less of it. What we call the Dark Ages were not dark. They were quiet, patient, and relentlessly intelligent. And perhaps, in a world facing energy limits once again, it is time we listen. Thank you for watching Historia Prime.